Well, folks, this is Lisa Anderson, and welcome to this week's episode of The Boundless Show. Always great to have you. A little preview of what's coming up later on for our inbox. We have a listener who strongly supports what the Bible says about marriage and sexuality, but is concerned that with today's movies and entertainment content, there's a lot of pro-LGBT content, and it's just becoming unavoidable. So his question is, well, what do we do? Like, there are lots of other things that maybe are problematic, and we watch those. So our friend Adam Holtz, who is from Plugged In, is going to weigh in on that. And then for our culture, Josh Burnett and Pete Hardesty are the authors of a series called Adulting 101. And one of the books, we're going to talk about some of the themes from it this week, specifically how to take good care of yourself as a young adult, mentally and beyond. So, well, here we are for our roundtable, and actually this will be a good opportunity for us to talk about, something that will dovetail really across the segments here for the show, because we're going to talk about the value of being able to pause in life. And of course, in a culture where most of us are running ragged, and especially I feel like young adults between like burnout and FOMO and just kind of feeling like you have to get ahead and stuff, this is especially problematic. And so we're going to delve into it today. And we have got Katie, Chris, and John here. Hey, everyone.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello. And I'm also going to say, not to brag, because I already had to admit that they weren't homemade, but we have cookies here to celebrate John Pearden's birthday.
Thank you, Lisa.
Happy birthday, John.
Appreciate it.
Okay, I'm waiting. You are on the downward slope to 30, but you still have 2 years, right?
I do, yes. I just turned 28 yesterday, which was yesterday of the day of this recording was my birthday. So, but thank you so much. That was very thoughtful.
September. Yeah. So yeah, it's these September birthdays. They're good ones because it's a good time of year overall, I feel. So happy birthday to John. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's talk about this concept of really needing to pause in seasons of busyness, which I say seasons almost jokingly because we're always all busy, it seems. So let's talk first of all, like, how does this resonate with you? Are you a person who finds it hard to take a break and stop the hamster wheel? Or are you pretty good at this? Do you think your personality plays into it? Or do you think you've just found some structures for making this happen? How does this play out for you?
As an introvert, I must say that taking time to pause is a necessity. It really is sometimes. Okay. I need moments where honestly I can just kind of stop and process life. Mm-hmm. And there are some times where I will just block out an evening to maybe spend time with God or just not have any social events going on. So I definitely see that I'm pretty good at it, but some weeks are better than others because if I have a lot scheduled for 1 week, it's a little tough for me to take time to pause, but I'm rather adamant that this needs to be a regular part of my life.
That's good.
Yeah, I really like that hamster wheel analogy that you made because I can't tell you how many times I feel like the faster I run, the harder it is to stop. The momentum will carry you. But I definitely find it hard most of the time. But like John, I'm an introvert myself. And finding those times where you can really pull back and center yourself is so crucial to not get into like a manic state, just personally for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
On the other end of the spectrum, I'm an extrovert. I love having a busy schedule. I love being able to spend time with people on a regular basis. So I've had to learn over the years, especially through college and now into adulthood, like post-college, I feel like I've really had to be intentional about setting aside time to pause because I'm really bad at it. I'm like a yes person. If you're like, hey, we're going to go do this on this week. And I'm like, yes. Oh, we're going to go do this after. Yes. And I just keep going and keep going and keep going. So yeah, it's hard for me to take a minute to pause sometimes.
It's interesting because I feel like I've gotten better at this like in recent years, but I was just on vacation and I'm going to air quote that because I happened to go with my roommate out to San Diego where we stayed with her aunt and uncle who just ran us ragged. And I'm going to say this because they are most likely not going to listen to this episode. But
fair.
I don't understand, like, okay, I'm an extrovert, but I'm pretty borderline. My roommate's an introvert. She came home basically sick from not having sleep because every night they're just like, let's do this, let's do this. And we're like, how do you have all the energy for this? And it was just like, you know, in addition to activities, it was chatting, and it was all awesome. They're just the best. But it's just so funny how you like look at other people and you're like, how do you do that? So to that point, and kind of what you were saying, Katie, what do you feel like things or situations or opportunities are put on you, or do you feel you create kind of the scurry and the hurry around yourself?
I think it's both for me.
Okay.
I think I am someone who, if I have free time, I'm going to waste it. So I try to build.
Thank you for that admission.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's something that I really had to learn, and so I intentionally make a busy schedule so that I don't waste time, so I can feel more purpose. But in that, there's finding that balance of like, okay, you need to take time to pause and reflect.
Yeah.
You need to spend time with God. You need to do X, Y, Z. You need to be able to function as a human. You can't just be out doing stuff all the time.
Yeah.
So I think it's both for sure for me. So it's just, there are some times where I need to learn to say no for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, and man, I'm exactly the same. Like if I have an entire day that I can do nothing, I will do nothing. So I definitely purposely fill it as much as I can. But even with that intentionality of keeping and building a busy schedule, like I'm usually gone for like 12 hours a day right now, but being able to stop in that makes me appreciate it a lot more, to where it's having that alone time to stop. It's kind of like the dessert at the end of the day, that like you shouldn't have it all the time, but it's sweeter when you get it. Yeah.
That's good.
Outside of my normal routine, I'm usually getting asked to be a part of stuff from friends. And so it's definitely both for me as well. I'm typically not the one initiating friends events, but I've been very blessed in that I have a lot of friends who will invite me to things. And sometimes I have to say no, but a lot of the times I almost feel an obligation to say yes.
Yeah.
So it's definitely both and for me.
Yeah. I think it's easy for me to say yes to too many things. And so I would love to blame other people and say that these are things put on me, but then I'm the one that's agreeing to them and or initiating them. So I think that can be part of the problem. But well, let's talk a little bit about what, you know, because we're talking about this pause. What does a pause look like for you? First of all, what kind of time frame do you need? Can you pause for 5 minutes, or do you need like an hour? Or, you know, some people are like all or nothing. It's like my friend who says, I keep trying to clean my house, but until I have an entire day, I just can't do it. And I'm like, girl, you can do something in 5 minutes. Okay. So get on it, you know, and whatever. But it is hard sometimes to be able to slow down enough if we only have small chunks of time. But what does that look like for you, an ideal, or maybe some different versions of a pause for you?
Minimum 30 minutes.
Okay. Okay.
A lot of
Laying it
times,
out.
yes, minimum 30 minutes, because a lot of the time I'm thinking so deeply about so many different things. Sometimes I just need a few minutes to be able to pause my brain.
Yeah.
If I can just say it that way, pause my brain.
Yeah.
And it takes a few minutes for me sometimes. So a good hour is good for me to be able to say, I'm going to set this time to either just tune out the world, not look at my phone for a while, and just sit in silence and pray, or to use that time to do my quiet time. Both of those can be really good pause options for me.
Okay. Good.
Yeah, for me, I would probably, it's gotten shorter. The more that I've been intentional about it, the shorter the amount of time that I need is to get into that zone, so to speak, of focus. Because before, man, it used to take me a day. Like I would have to watch a whole bunch of sermons, get myself into the right mindset, listen to some worship music. But yeah, just recently, like I just take that time in my car when I get places, and it has become substantially easier, and it's less of me processing stuff and more of God revealing things to me just for being obedient to take that time. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, it depends for me. I know in college I had to take time, like I had to take a full 24 hours. Like I had to force myself to do that just because of the craziness, the schedules, the staying up late. Now that I have a more set schedule, now that I have an 8 to 5 job, I can take shorter breaks. So now it's like I can take 10 minutes, 5 minutes and be fine, like once a day maybe. You know, there are some days where I just go for weeks on end, and then I have to take a full day. I just do that to myself as an extrovert. It's just a problem that I'm working on. But usually I only have to take 10, 15 minutes, and I'm good, and that's refreshing.
Yeah, that's good. It's interesting because I was trying to, you know, before coming down here, I was trying to think of like, what are things that I would recommend to folks for taking a pause? And it came to mind, I was in a meeting with one of our executives here at Focus on the Family, and he talked about after a busy day at work, he'll go as he drives home, he'll stop somewhere on his street and just take like 5 to 10 minutes to kind of let go of everything at work, just pray, refocus his mind to go and like be present with his family instead of trying to like bleed into that area or let the two meet too much. And I thought that was really good. And it got me to thinking like, how do I use my commute, which is actually pretty substantial. It's usually about 25 minutes. So, and one thing that came to mind is I should try like how many of us here, maybe it's just me, get in your car and you're either calling someone or you're going to hit someone with a voice text, because if you voice text it, okay, not while you're driving, people, but you know, before you start driving, then maybe by the time you get to your place, they will have responded. And I think it's so efficient, and I'm trying to multitask.
Guilty.
Yeah.
But it's just like a big frazzle fest. I mean, I'm just like trying to do all these things like and maximize my time. And I'm like, I wonder what it would look like to use a commute just as a pause when I can. I don't know. What are some other ideas that y'all would have for making that happen?
Well, it's funny you mention that because that's what I do.
Okay.
Is I will usually on the way to and from work, which is about 10, 15 minutes depending on traffic, I'll use one of them as like my prayer time, usually in the morning, to get my head in the right place because I'm not a morning person. So I have to take the time to be like, Lord, help me today. Help me have the right attitude. Help me to glorify you. And then on the way home, I'll usually listen to worship music or something that will be uplifting to me, because I'm tired at the end of the day. So it's really nice to have that reset that's away from, you know, my personal quiet time. That's kind of what I do. That's what my dad did growing up, is like he would use his commute to pray. And so that's what I started doing.
That's a great way to do that.
Yeah, I think that being intentional about transitions, kind of like you were illustrating, is so important. That getting your mindset in the right place for the place that you're going to be is really important. But even getting past the area of like, okay, I have to do this, and this, and this. But kind of like Katie was saying, that you need to pray like, God, give me the right attitude for this next thing that I'm going to do. I'm the opposite, where a lot of the time I'm preparing myself to get to that place by listening to worship music there just to kind of set the tone. But then I am horrendously early everywhere I go.
Oh, that's great.
I don't know if horrendous is the right word.
That's actually good.
That's an asset.
It's a good trait.
Yes, yeah. But ultimately, I take that time when I get there so that I can fully focus. That's just what I need to do personally. My thoughts are all over the place when I'm driving, but when I get there, I'm able to focus. And I love that time, and I make sure I protect it.
Okay, that's good. But you don't have like, you're not sitting there and then people are rapping on your window like, hey, how come you haven't gone in yet? What are you doing, Chris?
It's happened.
Okay.
And
then you're like, I'm using my pause. Okay. Like,
I used to, I was the general manager of a Chick-fil-A out in California, and they knew me for just sitting in my car on my breaks every single time. They were like, how come you're not in here with us? I'm like, I need my quiet time, man. So it 100% it would happen.
Cool.
Reading the Bible has been revolutionary for me in that regard, just taking time to pause and really clear my mind out. Right now I'm doing a read through the Bible in a year program, and that really just tells me, hey, here's what you're going to read on this day. So I already know going into the day what I'm going to read. And so cool. Everybody has to, as you like to say, Lisa, find that method for spending time with God that works for them. And that was something that when I was early in my walk with God, that I was very blessed to have friends who pushed me to get into that habit. And so one method that I've adopted in more recent years is taking notes. when I read the Bible. And honestly, just having that time with God where I can tune out the world and spend time in his word has helped me immensely.
That's great.
Yeah.
So what would you guys say? I mean, obviously, in order to have any kind of pause, whether, it's Chris sitting in his car or whether it's John with 30 minutes or whatever, you have to be willing to say no to some things. Are there things in your life that you've actually had to cut out in order to have a little more margin in your life? Either one-off things where you remember this is just something I had to say no to, or it's just stuff that regularly, like in your routine, you've just been like, no, this is going to have to go if I'm going to have some sanity in my life.
I mean, usually it's one-offs for me where I have to evaluate myself and be like, okay, how many things do you need to get done in your day? Have you had time with God? And it takes me, I so badly want to say yes to everyone. Like I said, I'm a yes person. Like, that's just what I want to do. I'm a people pleaser.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I feel really bad saying no, but it's what I have to do to be able to maintain my relationship with Christ, but then also to keep my sanity.
Yeah.
It's twofold. It's twofold.
And it's interesting because I think a lot of people think that when they're letting something go, they think that everything that they have to say no to are bad things, but it's often the good things you have to say no to that are ultimately going to give you the space you need. It won't always. You're going to have a choice between two very good things, and you're going to have to choose one good thing over another good thing, and that's helpful to remember.
Yeah.
I remember in my junior year of college, I had a friend who really challenged me and a bunch of guys that I was close with. And he said, I'd like for you guys for a week or so to just fast from something that's distracting you right now. And for me, that was social media. Admittedly, I still struggle with sometimes getting into the vortex of it. You mentioned yesterday was
Same. Yeah.
You mentioned yesterday was my birthday. I'll admit I checked my social media a lot when I got home yesterday evening, just checking to see who do I need to respond to and things like that. But I remember in that challenge that he gave us, I was shocked by how much my schedule cleared up.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I realized, wow, I have a lot more time on my hands than I actually thought I did, simply because I was willing to just put my phone down for, use air quotes, a few minutes, which actually turned into a few hours. So that is one area. I'm still kind of wrestling with it, but I think learning to be more disciplined and say no helps so much to just have those moments when I can pause and spend time with God.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. For me, it's usually bigger commitments. I'm in a season of growth right now where I've been trying to take a lot of things or just being intentional about what is on my plate. Intentional is my word of the day, guys. Sorry. But overall, I wouldn't go as far as saying people pleasing, but just really trying to see what God has for me and stuff. And that is the biggest area that I'm up against right now, because my time outside of focus, I'm having to figure out what I'm going to do because my entire day is full at this point, and it has been very difficult and very, very much a area of prayer that I've had to have Jesus lead me in, and I almost think that's more difficult. I'm not trying to put anything down, but just like it's so difficult to try and decide between like serving and volunteering or like pursuing dreams in certain areas, and it's been difficult, but at the same time, ultimately, if you aren't connecting with Jesus, like, why are you doing it? So
so true.
Yeah, I think for me, one of the things that I've done, which seems like, it was almost like reluctant to do it because it seems so grandma-ish in a way, but I've had to get to the point where if I don't have at least one consistent night at home a week, I just realize that I kind of start spiraling. So honestly, like it would probably be at least two, but it's very easy to, commit or feel like, oh, well, I don't want to miss this, or feel like, well, they asked me at church to do this. And then all of a sudden it's just, to Chris's point, and this is kind of all of us here, when you work a full-time job and you're doing that and you're spinning a bunch of plates and then you've made other commitments.
Yeah.
And then I have on my goals list, like read X number of books. When am I going to be reading these books if I'm out every night of the week? So,
True.
or how
Exactly.
is John going to hike a 14er if he doesn't have the time set aside on a weekend to do it? So it is kind of like a math problem, you guys. You got to
really
make
is.
the time for it. That does make sense. So yeah, it is hard when we say, I just can't stop being busy.
Yeah.
How do I stop being busy? And it really does come down to priorities and making it happen and being willing to even take that moment, of just quiet prayer or just deep breathing and just kind of I know John had even suggested earlier when we were talking about this show, like just thinking of things you're grateful for and what does it look like, and areas of growth where you've seen growth in yourself and others is a great thing to do as well. And then sometimes we can go after the bigger rocks too. So, well, you guys, thank you so much. I appreciate you weighing
Thanks
in
for
on
having
this.
me.
Thanks,
Absolutely.
Lisa.
The Boundless Show is a production of Boundless.org. Focus on the family.